Welcome to another episode of Books in Bytes. Today we're taking a deep dive into a really powerful literary work, one that continues to resonate with millions. Albert Camus' The Stranger. We're exploring an illuminating new American translation by Matthew Ward, which I think truly gives fresh life to this haunting novel. It really offers some new angles on its enduring themes.
Indeed. Our mission with this deep dive is, well, to offer you a shortcut to understanding what Camus himself termed the nakedness of man faced with the absurd. We're going to try and extract the most important insights from this classic, guided by the precise and clear language of this particular translation. You'll gain knowledge quickly, hopefully thoroughly, discover some surprising facts maybe, and hopefully have quite a few aha moments along the way.
Sure.
Moments that genuinely challenge your perspectives.
Okay, so let's unpack this story. It begins with one of the most iconic opening lines in modern literature, really. We're immediately introduced to Meursault and his, well, singular, almost disquieting reaction to a life-altering event. The telegram just says, "Maman died today," or yesterday, maybe, I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
This isn't just a plot point, is it? It's a profound statement about his character right from the very start. His detachment is just palpable. His boss is annoyed. He even asked for 2 days off. He's more concerned about the funeral's sort of official feel than any personal grief. And most strikingly, he refuses to even see his mother's body in the mortuary. What does this immediate lack of conventional reaction signal to you right off the bat?
It's truly fascinating, isn't it? That opening line, especially with Ward's translation using maman over mother, it immediately captures Meursault's almost childlike yet deeply detached sensibility. It's not just a lack of emotion. It's a different kind of emotion, or perhaps a different way of processing the world altogether. This immediate lack of conventional grief isn't just a quirky detail. It's the central puzzle that society, and indeed you, the listener, will be asked to grapple with throughout the book. It's the first hint, really, that Meursault operates on a frequency utterly alien to societal expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
And that frequency just continues right into the funeral itself, where the physical experience seems to, well, eclipse any emotional one. He describes the intense, almost unbearable heat, the bumpy, sleepy bus ride, the mundane conversations at the home, and then the long vigil. He observes Maman's old friends, this crying woman, the suffocating silence broken only by these strange smacking noises. His simplest desire amidst all this is just to sleep. We're introduced to Thomas Perez, Maman's close friend, who struggles visibly through the procession, hampered by the heat in his limp. It makes you wonder, is it the heat making him numb, or is it simply a physical manifestation of his internal state?
That's a critical observation. And it leads us directly to a core concept in Camus' work, the absurd. For Meursault, the overwhelming physical discomfort, the relentless glare of the sun, the oppressive heat, it doesn't just influence his emotional response. It seems to become his emotional response. The landscape itself becomes inhuman and oppressive, and his physical sensations are so dominant that conventional grief simply can't seem to penetrate. This isn't presented as an excuse, I don't think. It's just his reality. What's truly insightful here is how Camus uses this physical environment to highlight the indifference of the universe to human suffering. That's a central tenet of the absurd, right? The world doesn't care about his loss, and in a way, he sort of reflected that back.
So if the absurd, as you put it, is this clash between our human need for meaning and the universe's silence, then Meursault seems to embody that silence, or at least its indifference. And his actions the very next day certainly reinforce this, diverging sharply from what society expects of a grieving son. He's at the public beach swimming with Marie Cardona, a former typist he'd had a thing for. They go to a Fernandel movie, a comedy no less, and spend the night together. The next day, he expresses his dislike of Sundays, eats eggs alone, observes the street life from his balcony, families, soccer fans, and what he describes as the robot woman at Celeste's, meticulously checking radio programs. It's just a series of utterly mundane, almost trivial observations after such a significant event.
This is where it gets truly unsettling and thought-provoking. The robot woman, with her excessively structured, meticulous routines, serves as this stark, almost ironic contrast to Meursault. While she embodies an almost mechanical pursuit of order, Meursault just drifts through life with almost no internal framework or preconceived notions. His statement, really nothing had changed, after his mother's funeral and that subsequent weekend, it profoundly challenges our assumptions about grief, normalcy, and the very fabric of human experience. It forces us to confront an unsettling question. Is our societal performance of grief, with all its rituals, maybe more about us and our need for meaning than about genuine emotion? Meursault simply is. He challenges the very framework of expected human response. He's not grieving conventionally, but is he wrong? Or just different?
That's a powerful point. He's not performing grief, he's just existing. His interactions with his neighbors, Salamano and Raymond, they further revealed his peculiar character. There's old Salamano and his mangy dog, a duo, who, after 8 years of this routine filled with abuse and interdependence, have somehow ended up looking like each other. Meursault observes they hate each other, yet are inseparable. It's quite a picture. Then we meet Raymond Synthèse, the warehouse guard with a boxer's nose, known for his violent encounter with a man. Raymond asks Meursault to write a punchy letter to his cheating mistress, a request Meursault agrees to without much thought at all.
Right. And if we connect this to the broader philosophical landscape Camus is painting, Meursault's willingness to help Raymond, despite his, violent intentions, and his detached observation of Salamano's paradoxical relationship with his dog, it demonstrates a striking lack of conventional moral judgment. He doesn't condemn or condone. He simply observes and, assists if asked. He states, "I didn't think anything but that it was interesting," when asked about Raymond's dubious plan. This absence of moral calculus, this simple, almost childlike acceptance of events as they unfold, is a critical element that will later be used against him, devastatingly so. It's not that he's immoral, perhaps, but amoral, operating outside the ethical framework society expects.
And this detachment, this almost passive engagement with the world, it culminates in the pivotal moment at Masson's beach house. Raymond's friend, Masson, invites Meursault and Marie to his bungalow for a day out. They spend the day swimming and having lunch, with Masson repeating his quirky, and I'd even say, phrase, kind of sticks in your mind. But the day takes a dark turn when the group re-encounters the Arabs, one of whom is Raymond's mistress's brother. A violent fight breaks out, Raymond is cut, and Meursault, with little hesitation it seems, takes Raymond's gun. The stage is really set there.
This is the absolute nexus of the novel. Everything. The relentless sun, the shared wine, the underlying violence, the earlier animosity between Raymond and the Arabs, it all converges. The moment Meursault takes Raymond's gun and returns to the beach alone, under what he describes as the overpowering sun, that's crucial. His physical sensations become paramount. He feels his forehead swelling, hears the symbols of sunlight crashing on his head. It's almost as if the sun itself is an active agent, pushing him towards the fateful 5 shots. That's when everything began to reel, he says. It's a moment where his passive existence collides with an act of ultimate consequence. It's a visceral, almost sensory explanation for an act that society will later demand a rational moral reason for, which he just can't give.
Exactly. So with the murder, Meursault's life takes that dramatic turn, and society immediately attempts to understand him through its legal machinery. His initial indifference to his arrest is striking. He treats it almost like another inconvenience. The examining magistrate is curious, almost bewildered, by Meursault's lack of remorse, while his lawyer is gravely concerned about Meursault's insensitivity at his mother's funeral, a detail that becomes, surprisingly, central to the whole case. Meursault himself struggles to articulate feelings, stating, "I had pretty much lost the habit of analyzing myself." It's like he doesn't even have the vocabulary for what they're asking him to express.
What's truly insightful here is how the legal system, which is designed to impose order and meaning, utterly fails to comprehend Meursault. It just can't process him. It tries to force his actions into a narrative based on societal expectations of grief, remorse, rational motivation, all the usual things. His inability to conform makes him an enigma, leading to the magistrate's exasperated labeling of him as Monsieur Antichrist, after Meursault, with characteristic bluntness, declares he does not believe in God. The system demands an explanation, a why, that he cannot give because his internal reality operates without those conventional frameworks. It's a profound commentary on how society really struggles, to process anything that deviates from its established norms.
Prison then becomes this new, confining setting for Meursault's unique internal world. He adapts, eventually learning that you could get used to anything, a line he recalls from his maman, which now takes on a new, kind of grim significance. He develops a meticulous method of killing time by recalling every single detail of his room. He notes the long hours of sleep and reads this fascinating, if chilling, Czechoslovakian newspaper story about a man murdered by his mother and sister for his money after a long absence. Through all this, he grows acutely aware of time's fluidity and even the sound of his own voice in the silence. It's quite introspective in its own way.
This period in prison highlights not just his detachment, but also a remarkable, almost unsettling resilience. He doesn't succumb to despair in the way you might expect. Not at all. The story of the Czechoslovakian man serves as this chilling, almost amoral parallel and a moment of stark reflection for Meursault. He simply thinks, "I thought the traveler pretty much deserved what he got, and that you should never play games." There's no emotional judgment from him, no moral outrage, just a pragmatic, if cold, observation about consequences. Very Meursault. It further underscores how he views the world in terms of events and outcomes, rather than through an emotional or ethical lens. This ability to adapt and find a strange kind of peace in confined, repetitive circumstances is a key aspect of his character.
The trial itself then becomes less about the actual crime, doesn't it, and more about Meursault's character transforming into a public spectacle. The courtroom is packed, the jury appears as anonymous passengers, the press shows keen interest, almost treating it as entertainment. His lawyer advises him, perhaps unwisely, to respond briefly, contrasting sharply with the flamboyant, theatrical prosecutor. It feels less like a search for truth and much more like a carefully constructed performance.
This is where the trial truly becomes a lens through which society scrutinizes the absurd. The prosecution skillfully and mercilessly frames Meursault's perceived insensitivity at his mother's funeral as directly linked to his capacity for murder. They declare with chilling conviction, "I accuse this man of burying his mother with crime in his heart." It's a character assassination, not just a criminal case. The jury is invited to judge not the act itself, but Meursault's entire being, his unconventional emotional responses, his failure to perform according to the script of expected human behavior. The trial isn't really about justice. It's about society reasserting its own need for meaning and order against someone who challenges it.
And the witness testimonies further twist this narrative, don't they? It's quite something to see unfold. The director of the home testifies to Meursault's calm, his not crying, his not even knowing Maman's exact age, much to the prosecutor's obvious glee. The caretaker confirms Meursault smoked and had coffee during the vigil, which the prosecutor uses to argue a son should have refused it. Simple things, twisted. Thomas Perez, Maman's friend, is so overcome with sadness he couldn't even observe Meursault, prompting his lawyer's frustrated outburst. Everything is true and nothing is true, which seems to capture it perfectly. Celeste, Meursault's friend, calls him a man and attributes the crime to bad luck, a wonderfully simple explanation that nobody seems to grasp. Marie Cardona confirms their relationship began the day after the funeral, including the swimming and the comedy film, which the prosecutor twists into shameful debauchery, making Marie cry on the stand. Even Masson calls Meursault honest and decent, and Salamano explains Meursault put Mama in the home because he ran out of things to say. Simple human explanations. And then Raymond Santaza declares Meursault innocent, claims events were chance, but the prosecutor dismantles this, linking Meursault to Raymond's unspeakable vice, calling Meursault a monster and an accomplice.
That's so absolutely.
It's just an overwhelming barrage, isn't it? All these seemingly simple facts reinterpreted as evidence of his monstrousness.
It truly is. These testimonies, those seemingly simple facts about Meursault's life, are twisted and recontextualized by the prosecution to construct a narrative of a soulless, remorseless man. What's profoundly unsettling here is how facts become less important than the interpretation of those facts, especially when filtered through societal expectations of morality and emotion. It's not just the murder on trial, it's Meursault's entire way of being, his unconventional emotional responses, his refusal to perform grief or guilt in the correct manner. Society demands a certain performance of grief and morality, and Meursault utterly fails to provide it. And for that, he is deemed a danger. This highlights how easily individual truth can be just, subsumed by collective moralistic judgment.
The summations and verdict then bring Meursault face to face with his fate. It feels inevitable by this point. The prosecutor argues for premeditation, highlighting Meursault's intelligence and, crucially, his perceived lack of remorse. He even connects him to another case, a patricide, suggesting Meursault's lack of humanity makes him equally monstrous. The prosecutor dramatically asks for his head. Meursault's lawyer tries to explain provocation and Meursault's good character, but notably, he strategically omits any mention of the funeral, knowing it would hurt the case. Meursault, during all this high drama, feels completely detached. His mind wanders to an ice cream vendor during the proceedings. A truly absurd detail, the verdict. Guilty of murder, premeditated, sentenced to be cut off in a public square in the name of the French people. When asked if he has anything to say, Meursault simply replies, no.
It's a devastating moment, and it raises a critical question for you, the listener. Is justice truly blind? Or is it heavily influenced by a defendant's ability to conform to expected emotional displays? Meursault's blunt, almost childlike statement earlier that his crime was because of the sun, it's met with laughter in the courtroom. It highlights the profound disconnect between his internal physical reality and society's desperate need for a logical, morally framed explanation for his actions. The verdict isn't just about guilt or innocence, it's society's condemnation of a man who refused to play by its emotional rules. His detachment, once just his personal trait, is now essentially criminalized.
In his final days, facing his impending execution, Meursault grapples with his existence, or maybe the ultimate non-existence. He repeatedly refuses to see the chaplain, analyzing the machinery of justice and the guillotine itself as simple and precise, stripping away all imagination and illusion. Very pragmatic. He spends his nights waiting for dawn, experiencing what he calls a terrifying leap at the thought of 20 more years of life. Not a desire for it, but a terror at its possibility. Interesting. He ultimately concludes that since we're all going to die, it's obvious that when and how don't matter. It's a stark, almost brutal form of acceptance.
What's profoundly fascinating here is Meursault's journey toward this truly unsettling understanding. He challenges the arrogant certainty of the verdict and his own previous mistaken ideas about execution. This period of intense reflection leads him to accept the relentless machinery of fate, not with despair, but with a form of cold clarity. He strips away all the conventional comforts and hopes, arriving at a naked truth about mortality. He's shedding all illusions, moving towards a pure, unvarnished confrontation with the absurd, and finding a strange kind of liberation in accepting the meaninglessness that awaits everyone.
This journey culminates in the chaplain's final, persistent visit, which precipitates Meursault's ultimate emotional outburst and a profound realization. The chaplain gently questions him about God, despair, hope, attempting to offer spiritual comfort, which Meursault initially dismisses as unimportant, just waves it away. But Meursault's irritation escalates into this violent outburst where he literally confronts the chaplain's certainties, asserting his own unshakable certainty of my life and sure of the death I had waiting for me. This isn't just anger. It feels like a breaking point of clarity, doesn't it?
This final confrontation is indeed the culmination of Meursault's entire journey, and it's a foundational moment for understanding Camus' philosophy. He realizes, in that moment of raw, unbridled rage, that nothing mattered, and I knew why. He connects the absurd life I'd lived with a dark wind that levels everything, obliterating all conventional distinctions and values. He concludes that others' deaths, a mother's love, the concept of God, ultimately, none of it matters because we're all elected by the same fate. In this profound moment, he feels a deep, almost uncanny understanding of Mama's own late-life fiancé and her readiness to live it all again, suggesting she too had come to terms with the world's indifference. It's a shocking yet liberating realization of the ultimate meaninglessness that underpins existence.
His final thoughts, then, offer a chilling yet strangely liberating perspective. Meursault finds the wondrous peace of that sleeping summer. He feels as if that blind rage had washed me clean, rid me of hope, which for him isn't a loss, but a kind of purification. For the first time, he says, he opened myself to the gentle indifference of the world, finding it so much like myself, so like a brother. And his final provocative wish is for a large crowd of spectators the day of my execution and that they greet me with cries of hate. It's an ending that just leaves you pondering for days.
This provocative final thought truly leaves us with the unsettling clarity of Camus's philosophy. Meursault, by fully embracing the inherent meaninglessness of existence, paradoxically finds a form of happiness and freedom in that acceptance. It's not a path to joy as we typically understand it, but a profound peace found in aligning oneself with the universe's indifference. This challenges our very notions of what it means to be alive, to feel, and to find meaning in a world that so often demands it of us. It makes you wonder, in our own lives, how much of our emotional display is genuine and how much is a performance for others, for society's sake. Meursault dares to strip that all away.
That was quite the journey into the heart of Albert Camus's The Stranger. To truly explore these profound ideas and Meursault's unique perspective, we highly recommend you grab a copy of the book for yourself.
Yes, and you can find a link to Matthew Ward's illuminating translation in our description, allowing you to dive even deeper into this literary masterpiece.
And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to Books and Bytes for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. We'll see you next time.